Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, allow your eyelids to close. And in doing so, become aware of how much more of your attention you can give to the sound of my voice. Continuing to breathe in and breathe out. That's right. I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that as you breathe in, you're breathing in a sense of resourcefulness. And I want you to perceive the meaning of resourcefulness to just mean that all of the helpful feelings that would be useful for you. Perhaps resourcefulness for you means motivation, discipline, self-control. Maybe resourcefulness means the ability to relax and release that tension. I want you to imagine that your body is kind of like a glass, and I want you to imagine that the glass could be a glass of a coloured liquid. And I want you to imagine that as you breathe in, you're breathing in a resourceful feeling, and I want you to imagine a colour that represents resourcefulness, maybe a bright colour. And then as you exhale, I want you to imagine that anything that is no longer resourceful for you is leaving your body. Perhaps stress, perhaps tension, perhaps worries, leaving your body. And still hold an image in your mind of a coloured glass. And maybe to begin with, that coloured glass is filled with a liquid of the colour that represents tension, stress and worries and overwhelm. But as you breathe in that resourceful feeling of relaxation, I want you to imagine that it's almost like tipping in one colour and removing another colour, and slowly but surely the colour of that liquid in that glass is changing from those disempowering emotions to something more resourceful. Breathe in that warm, vibrant colour of resourcefulness and notice that tension is leaving your body. Stress and worries are leaving your body. In fact, you can imagine as you exhale, see that darker colour leaving your body in your outward breath. Breathing in a feeling of resourcefulness and exhaling feelings of tension, stress and worries. And allow tension in your neck to be released. Your jaw, your face. Release that tension now. As you breathe, notice that you can start to breathe deeper there in your diaphragm. Taking longer, deeper breaths. Still being aware that the colour of that glass is changing. The liquid is changing, becoming brighter, reflecting that more resourceful colour that's now within you. And at the point where you feel much more resourceful, much more able to cope, feeling that the choices you make are the choices you want, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. And I want you to get a sense, as you breathe in, breathe out, that you're going into a deeper level of relaxation, a feeling perhaps of being able to cope. I want you to imagine that the definition of being able to cope is that you can just handle whatever life throws at you. And I want you to try and recall the last time you died of stress. And then think about how many times you've experienced stress in your life. And maybe you've experienced stress anything from 2 or 3 times a day to maybe 10 or 20 times a day of different intensities, and not once has stress overwhelmed you to the point that you died. There are 365 days every year. Years and years of living multiplied. There's 365 days of stress, even if there was just 2 or 3 stressful occasions per day. That is 1,000 stressful events. Over decades, that would be 10,000 stressful events. And yet, you're still here, which means that you have evidence that if the definition of coping is getting through whatever life throws at you, whatever stress and overwhelming things, you can still wake up the next morning and still carry on. Is that not coping? And you might not be coping as well as you want to, but just know that it is still coping. Therefore, you can have a definition of coping, which is falling down and getting back up. And that definition of emotional resilience means that you can do that with no help from anything external. Just picking yourself back up means that you're wiser for that fall. I want you to get a sense that life has problems. Life has stressful moments. But what if these moments are designed to challenge us to evolve? That whenever we figure out how to solve a problem, we're better equipped to solve anything similar to that problem in the future. What if life isn't meant to be easy, but meaningful? I want you to get a sense that you've dealt with some very challenging moments in your life, and I want you to think back to a time where you felt so stressed, so overwhelmed, that it almost felt like there was a pressure there in your chest. And when you can recall a moment like that, just let me know by nodding your head. I want you to raise your hand and show me how that pressure feels like it's growing right there in that location. That's right. I want you to get a sense that this feeling of pressure there in that location, squeezing, tightening, is something that has been a trigger for you to do something. And I want you to imagine that there with your hand, pulling it out from the inside and pull it out of your chest, so I can almost feel like it's being held in front of you. Now that part had a positive intention, to take something seriously, to do something. But I want you to get a sense that it has served its purpose. Because you have multiple ways of dealing with stressful events, and this tightening, squeezing sensation has served its purpose. You don't need it anymore. And I want you to feel like this is no longer necessary for you. I want you to imagine that sensation is almost like a ball of snow. I want you to imagine it crumbling there in your hands. And as it does so, feel immediately that feeling disappear. And instead, I want you to replace it with a feeling of something expanding. In life, things either contract or they expand. And I want you to make an image of something in your mind, of something that expands. Maybe it's a flower bud that is starting to bloom. Maybe it's something that is growing and expanding wider. When you can think of something that represents expansion, just let me know by nodding your head. Picture that thing. Imagine it small and then getting wider, and imagine that stress fuels this expansion. I want you to place it back in your chest, in the exact same location, but with a new idea. An idea that, what if stress expanded your way of thinking and opened up your mind to all the different ways in which you could handle this situation? When things contract, you reduce options, limiting to doing poor quality ideas that don't really work anyway. When you expand, you open your mind to the possibility of all the different options available to you. As you feel that expansion there in the center of your chest, imagine that there is a cape, a blanket if you like, starting from your shoulders and going down the back of your body. I want you to shift your posture and your breathing to like that of a superhero. I want you to imagine that a superhero, when a challenge comes their way, don't they smile? Knowing that they have all the resources to cope with something challenging for mere mortals, but for them it's well within their grasp. That feeling of, I can handle this, I can cope. I want you to get a sense that stress is now unlocking your potential. They say that the difference between a rock of coal and a diamond is pressure. The pressure creates the value inside it. And from this point forward, I want you to entertain the idea that stressful things and overwhelming things actually bring out the best in you. Bring out your ability to see the bigger picture, to step away and identify the different options that you have. Sometimes it might be a trigger for a moment of reflection, just you with your thoughts, breathing slowly and getting a sense of what I'd like to do in this situation. Imagine going back to that same thing that created that feeling of contraction there in your chest, and imagine this time something small there in your chest feels like it's expanding, that you can feel that cape, that cloak down the back of your neck, unlocking a feeling of immense resourcefulness within you, feeling that, I've got this, I can handle this. And in doing so, notice that what you used to desire and feel like you need is no longer there anymore. In fact, there's a feeling of freedom. And with that feeling of freedom, you feel like stress is disappearing. And holding on to that feeling, I want you to feel like you're back in the present. As I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, you will awaken feeling resourceful, feeling optimistic, and feeling that you have unlocked an ability to perceive stressful events differently. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.